Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Um, Most of the set 7 cards have been dropped and there's a ton to talk about, from game-changing mechanics to some serious powerful characters. These cards are sure to shake up the meta. Today we're ranking all of them, so stick around to see which card makes the top of the list and which ones might need a little more love. Don't forget to like, subscribe and hit that bell so you won't miss any of our future content. Let's get into it. The first card in our list is a Rhino Motivational Speaker, a 6 cost unink with 4/7, and your other characters gets +2 defense and he quests for 2. Me personally, I don't think this card will see a lot of play. Not because it's a really bad card, but more like, first of all, it's just allowed in Amber Steel decks. Second of all, it's a very high cost character and it's unink, so it won't see any play in some hyper aggro decks. And for the Steel Song variants, they already have a lot of unink in their deck, and I just don't think there is enough space for this card in their deck. So I personally think it will not see any play here. So yeah, that's the first card. Next card we have, and I'll just go through it like this, pretty fast. We have Perdita, 4 ink character with 1/4. And whenever this character quests, you pay 2 ink less for the next puppy character you play this turn. And also your puppy character gain ward. And it's of course an Ember Sapphire card. So it's, I think the Ember Sapphire deck will be more like a puppy deck, which is really interesting, and I see a lot of potential in this type of deck. I think if this deck gets relevant, this card will be really good, especially because if you play a puppy deck, all your characters will be puppies. So if this character comes on board, this card will be perfectly for all those protections. For example, if you play against Steel Song and so on, and all your characters have ward, it's like really hard to remove those characters in play. And as I've seen, some of the cards that are coming up are like really good for all those puppies. So I think this card will actually see play. Like in just this type of deck. Like in any other deck, this card is not that good, but like for all the puppies, this is like a really strong card, and we will see like really good special cards for special archetypes. And I'm like really hyped about this deck because it can like see a lot of potential play even in further sets. And yeah, next up we have King Stefan, the new father, a 4/7 vanilla card, 5 inkable, quests for 1. I don't see why this card will be played in any of the Ember decks. I mean, the stats are not that bad, but I personally think you can, on turn 5, you have so much better places in those decks, so I don't think this card will see any play. So let's put it in here. Next up, we have Bolt. Really interesting card. It was like one of the first Ember Steel dual color cards that got dropped. It's a 5 cost inkable with 3 strength and 5 defense. You can shift it for free, and whenever you ready this character, gain 1 lore, and for each other undamaged character you have in play. So this card can gain you a lot of lore, especially if you're playing it out really early and your opponent doesn't have any answers for your characters on the start of the turn. And a really cool thing is that you can tap in to banish a chosen illusion character. So if these cards are getting a lot of play, this, I think Bolt will be really interesting, and I think you will see it in some of the decks, especially if the meta shifts into those illusion characters. So I think I will personally put this card into will see play. It's not an auto include, but I think this card is really interesting, and you have like a lot of potential for turn 3. And yeah, you can also sing a whole new world and stuff with it, so this card also fits kind of in the Amber Steel decks. So maybe it will see some play, maybe not, and we will see in the meta. Like always, some cards, I personally, it's just my ranking on these cards. Personally, I think I will be with some of those cards, I will be perfectly wrong, because you can't like always predict the meta really good when a new sets come out, and you always don't see how strong a card really is until they are getting like played for real in few tournaments. Okay, next up we have Susie, Master Seamstress, a 3/4 character with 4 inkable, quest for 2, and I personally don't think this card will see any play, because you have such better characters for 4. For example, you have Lawrence, who's like 4/4 when he comes into play. I mean, it's an Amber card, but most Amber decks also play Steel with it. So I don't think this card will see any play, and I will just put it in here. Next one is Mitten, Sassy Street Cat. It's a 5 unink with the stats 4/5, and it has Bodyguard. And once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, your other characters with Bodyguard gets +1 this turn. I think this card is really interesting. Because we had that Bodyguard archetype in some way with all the Musketeers before the set. And I think this archetype, like, it just needs like a little bit more support to be like played. But me personally, I don't think this card will be seen played a lot, because alone you have like if you need a Bodyguard that's strong, you have that Pluto, who is like 4 cost and is like a 5/5 when he enters the field, and you have to like remove it first to like get to that 1 strength. So I personally think that this card won't see any play, but it's like a really cool card, and I think this idea of like pushing the Bodyguards is like really good. So I can see like a potential I can see a potential for these cards, because it will be maybe pushed in the next later sets. Next up we have the Troubadour, musical narrator. He has Resist 1 and Singer 4. So many people saw this and thought, okay, it's the better Ursula. But me personally, I think that this card is not better than Ursula. Especially if you think about, you can like, if you play on turn 1 the Cinderella, on turn 2 the Ursula, on turn 3 you play maybe Ariel, and then you like, in the next turn you sing like Strength of Raging Fire on your own Ursula to play Rapunzel and draw 3 cards. I think Ursula is just the way better card in this situation, so I don't think this card will see any play. Maybe at the start, because people are like really hyped about the new cards, but I think later on people will get that Ursula is just a way better card and will be again played a bit more than the Troubadour. But I think all in all, it's not a bad card. I would personally see it will see play, but not long, because people will just stick to Ursula back after playing it a few times. So yeah, I think it will see play, but it's not like an auto include, and I think later on it will be like somewhere here, but I will put it here first. Next up we have Wendy Darling. It's a Amber Ruby card, which is really interesting. 7 inkable, 5/7, has no shift, and has evasive. And whenever one of your other characters is banished, you may remove all damage from chosen character. This is really interesting, because you can like, if you have like a big monster, or for example, if she has damage on her, you can just like go in with another character and just like remove the damage counters from her back, so she will always get like back healed. But I don't think this card will see any play, because it's very expensive card, and you have like much better plays at 7. So I don't personally think this card will be played a lot. I think it's cool that she has Pirate and Captain, but I think the Pirate and Captains are like more worth to play in Emerald Steel, which will be see later. So I will just put this card and not see any play. Next up, we have a really interesting card. We have Mirabel Madrigal, a hopeful dreamer, and she has evasive and Singer 5. So the thing here is, as she had, I think it's like one of the first characters that has Singer 5 and has evasive, which is really interesting. But it will be like easily removed by Sisu and so on. Still, I think that this card could be played a lot in those Madrigal decks, which are like getting support every set and getting every time a bit stronger. And soon enough, I think we will see some puppy decks, we will see some Madrigal decks. So I think this card has a lot of potential, and definitely will see play in their own deck. So as you can see, Madrigal has their own archetype. So this is really interesting, and we will put it in we'll see play. Not in those hyper aggro decks like Amber Amethyst at the moment is like always a hyper aggro deck, but I think the Madrigal deck will be really strong in the future. Next up, we have Mariano Guzman, and while you have a character named Dolores Madrigal in play, this character gets +1 lore. I think that this card is like a bit too weak, even if you play it in a Madrigal deck, because the thing is, it's first of all, it's not a Madrigal card, so you can't like, so the archetype doesn't really fit in, and second of all, the effect for having a Dolores on field is just way too bad. So I don't really think this card will see any play, also not in some of the Madrigal decks. So I will put it in, will not see any play. Next up, we have the Candlehead, dedicated racer, 2-cost inkable with 2/2, and whenever this character is banished, you may remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. This card is really interesting because all those racer cards are like really strong together, especially if you like combine them, and you have like those locations that like give you up to like 3 or 4 lore, and you get like a lot of how do I say, you get like a lot of passive lore, and you always like draw like 3 or 4 cards with it. This is really interesting, and I think this card is just a bit too bad to see play in those decks. So I know this card is like specific for those decks, but I don't think it will see any play in those decks. Next up, we have Bolt, 4-cost inkable, 2/4, and has support and quests for 2. Me personally, the only way I would play this is for the shift, but there's like a way better shift option at the moment. So I personally think this card will also not be played. I will go a bit faster for some of those cards because most of them are just like some vanilla cards and so on. We can look at the stats, but I don't think much of them will see any play. Next up, we have Pascal, the Garden Chameleon, who has evasive and 3/3 and quests for 3. Really interesting card. As you can see, it's like for Amber Amethyst, and it's not for Madrigal, it's more for those hyper aggro decks. And I think this card is like really good, especially because you have evasive, and especially because you have like 3/3. The only way you can remove him is like with songs, for example, with Strangler, Raging Fire, and Zeus. But I think for like an hyper aggro deck, this card especially has some good potential to be played. So I will put it in here. Like in those decks, I think it will be played. I think it's not that a bad card. Next up, we have King Candy, and whenever one of your other racer characters is banished, each opponent chooses and banishes one of their characters. I think this card is really strong. Why? Because most of those racer characters you are playing in your deck, you will be removing them. Because you have those locations. Whenever you remove a character, or whenever like this location gets removed, like they all have like removal effects. If they remove themselves or if they remove something else, you're allowed to remove something from their side. So I think this card, King Candy, is like really good addition. It also, the Amber Ruby color combination fits to the archetype. So I think if you play those decks, this card will potentially see a lot of play. I just don't know where I added it in here. But if we come to this, I think this card will see a lot of play in the future. Next up, we have Penny. And it's a 2-cost inkable with 1/2, and when you play this character you remove up to 2 damage from chosen character and they gain resist 1 until the start of your next turn. I think this card is not that bad because you have like you're questing for 2, you are removing up to 2 damage and you give someone resist, which is really good. But this card is like really hard to tell if it will see any play. It's like a 2-cost, like for Ember Steel you have like a lot of 2-cost characters that are already really good, so I don't think it will see a lot of play, but I think it's not a bad card. I think this card has like a lot of potential, but just for the start I don't think it will see any play. Next up we have Thunderbolt, another Ember Sapphire card, and that's really interesting. Here you have a 5-cost inkable with 3/7 and you have the Puppy Shift. So you pay 3 to play this on top of one of your puppy characters. You can play it on one of your 1-cost characters, on your 5-cost characters. It has just to be a puppy, and I think this card is really amazing, and it shows like that we have like a lot of shift still to play. Like I think Puppy Shift is like a really cool addition to this new set. And I think also like with 3/7 it has like the perfect body to be a bodyguard, and for 3/7 shift is like really strong. So I think if you combine it with the other card we had before, he's also gaining ward, which means this card is like really hard to remove, and I think those 2 cards will be really strong in the future, and I can definitely see it will have a lot of play. I don't think I added in here, I'm sorry for that. I think some cards didn't get added, but that's not big of a deal. So this card will see a lot of play in those decks. I think you can also give her and him to auto-include, but just like in those decks, of course. But I think those cards are like really good, and we'll see a lot of potential in the next play. I think auto-include will be more like a section for solo colors, and so you can play it like in every deck, or like especially in those decks that will see a lot of play. Next up we have Calhoun, shift 4. So the effect is whenever this character challenges another character you may return whenever this character challenges another character you may return a racer character from your discard to your hand, which is like really cool. It's like 6 cost, 5/5, and I personally think it's a bit too expensive. And even for shift 4 you have like this deck doesn't have as much time to like play around, so I don't think this card would see a lot of play in those decks, but I still think this card is not that bad. Again, I don't think it's added in here. I used a lot of pictures, but here you can see like for example I think they just like a bit turned around here, which is really interesting. So I will add this. Definitely he will not see a lot of play, but as you can see those 2 are like in those 2 colors, this will be really strong. Next up we have Lady, Miss Park Avenue, shift 3. You may pay 3 to play this on top of one of your characters named Lady. It's a 5-cost unink 4/4, and when you play this character you may return up to 2 character cards with cost 2 or less from your discard to your hand. So in those lemon lime aggro decks this card is like really not that bad, but I just think being like a 5-cost Undeck is like always really hard to play in your deck, especially if you play like a really aggressive Lemon Lime deck. So I think I will put this card in and will not see a lot of play. Next up we have Pongo, Dear Old Dad, a 6-cost Unink, 5/5, and at the start of your turn you look at the cards in your inkwell and you may play a puppy character from there for free. This card is really strong, especially if you ink like the bodyguard, for example. You can like ink him and next play him out, and next turn if this card survives you can just like cheat him from your inkwell to the field. And like it's also all a new mechanic, and I see like a lot of potential in this card, and that's why I will put it into the we'll see play. Next up we have Kenai, and it's a 4-cost inkable, 2/4, and at the end of your turn, if this character is exerted, you may ready another chosen character of yours and remove all damage from them. It's really not a bad card, especially if you have like a strong bodyguard on your field, which is like hard to remove. For example, the Pencho, if you have him on board and you can like ready him up with this card and like heal him again, this is like a really strong option. But I don't think this card will see a lot of play also. But it's not a bad card at all. It's really cool and interesting. Maybe see potential in later drops. Next up we have our legendary Minnie Mouse Storyteller, and whenever you play a character, this character gets +1 lore this turn. And it's a 2-cost Unink, 1/2. It's especially for those aggressive decks. And whenever this character quests, chosen opponent character loses strength equal to this character's lore until the start of your next turn. So if you have a lot of characters like Daisy Ducks, Piglets, and so on your field, and I don't think it's like, personally, I don't think it's a card you play on turn 2. It's more like a card you play on turn 5 or so, or turn 4. Like you're spreading your board wide, and then you're just like playing this character out, and the next turn you just go quest a lot with them, and you give this card like a lot of lore, and especially your opponent is character like will lose a lot of strength. And what you can also do is play it on turn 2, and afterwards you play like a lot of characters out. Like in turn 3 you play 3 1-cost characters, then you cheat quests for like 3, then you choose a character, for example like Calhoun, which is like a really potential threat for those hyper aggro decks, and you give her -3 attack, and then you go like questing for 3 with your Daisy Duck, which you played on turn 1. I think this card has like a lot of potential in those hyper aggro decks, and I can see this card will be like definitely will be played. I just think it's also not in here. Edit. Here it is. I think this card will see a play. Maybe it's also an auto include, I'm not really sure, but for first I will put it in here. Next up we have Perla, a 3-cost inkable, 3/2, and has evasive and support. For me personally, I don't think this card will see also not any play. I don't think the stats are like that good, and it's just not questing for a lot, so I will add it in here. Snow White, this character can't be challenged. Really interesting. 4-cost inkable, 2/2, and quest for 2. It's really hard because it's like too easy to get removed. You can like one let the Storm Rage on, this card is already gone, or you can fire the cannons in and it's like already gone. So you like, I don't think this card has a lot of potential, and it's a cool idea, but for now like a 2/2 cost. Maybe if you give her ward, this would be interesting, but for now it's like really hard to play that card, so I don't think it will see any play. Maybe combining it with some resist is really interesting, but all in all I think that this card is not that good. Next up we have a 3-cost inkable Coda with 2/2 and quests for 3. think for those hyper aggro decks, this card is not that bad, but we had this already with Pinocchio, who is like a 2 unink and quests for free and has 1/1. It's just like if your character has like 1 or 2 defense, it's like really easy to get removed, especially in those especially if the steel meta hits. So if like every second deck is playing steel, it's like really hard to play out these decks. And me personally, I don't think this card will see any play. Next up, we have So Much to Give, a character with a song you can play with a character which costs like 2 or more, and you draw a card, and chosen character gains bodyguard until the start of your next turn. So this card is really interesting. I think it's not a bad card. I think it will see play, but in those I think it will see play in those aggressive Steel Song decks. You can sing it, for example, with Calhoun, give Calhoun bodyguard and just like quest with all your Daisy Ducks. This is like a option I see for this card, so I think I will put this card in We'll See play. Next up, we have Restoring the Heart. Remove up to 3 damage from chosen character or location and draw a card. I don't think this card is like that good, and a lot of those healing cards are really bad. So I think this card will not see any play at the moment, but maybe later on, if you can like recycle those cards much easier. And yeah. Next up, we have again a song for the Family Madrigal. And look at the top 5 cards of your deck. You may reveal up to 1 Madrigal card and put up to 1 song card and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the top of your deck in any order. So you can like predict your next few turns. You can like combine it with the other Madrigals, and I think this card will like be a must play if you play the Madrigal deck. Like I don't think the Madrigal will be so strong at the moment, but if you play it, you will auto include this card in it. Next up, we have a 2-cost unink spaghetti dinner, and you can like exert it and pay 1 ink. And if you have 2 or more characters in play, you gain 1 lore. I think this reminds me a lot of the flutes we had in set 2, and just a bit better for me. For example, like if you have 2 or more characters, you will always have like 2 or more characters in play, and I think this card is like really good for hyper aggro decks, but I think it's just a bit too slow because you have to like pay 1 again and to get 1 extra lore. So I personally will put it into Will Not See play. Or it's like really hard because if you have like Steel Song and you're like having a lot of control with Steel Song, this card is like really good because you're just gaining passive lore every turn. But I think it's just a bit too slow, so I will put it in Will Not See any play. And maybe I'm wrong with that, we will see. Next up, we have Cannon Crunchies, and your puppy characters get +1 defense. This is also really interesting, and I think it's really good because you have like it's inkable, it costs 1, and it's like a really good 1-drop. Or maybe you can play it like on turn 5 and boost all your puppy characters. So I think this card will see play in those puppy decks. Next up, we have like a really interesting card. People are talking about it a lot, especially because of the first effect. You may only have 2 copies of the Glass Slippers in your deck. So we have like the first cards that are not allowed to be played 4 times in the deck. You can banish this item and exert one of your prince characters to search your deck for a princess character and reveal it to all players, and put that card in your hand and shuffle your deck. I think this card is really interesting, but I personally think that this card will not see a lot of play because you're also not playing a lot of prince characters. Maybe you play Simba and that's it, but I don't think this card will see a lot of play. But I personally think it's not a bad card, so I'll put it in here. I'm not really sure. It's like a really interesting effect, especially because you're just allowed to use like 2 of them. Next up, we have our Cusco Temporary Whale. 5 cost unink, 1/4, and once during your turn, whenever a card is put in your Inkwell, you may return chosen character, item, or location with cost 2 or less to the player's hand, and then that player draws a card. I think this card is really bad, and I don't think it will see any play in the future. We have a Tanana Tribal Elder 4/4 vanilla. I don't think it will see a lot of play. You have so many drops, 4 drops in Amethyst, and I think all of them are like way better than her. So yeah. Next up we have Honey Marin, Nefertile Guide. When you play this character, if an opponent has an exert character in play, you gain 1 lore. I think this is not like a really good 2 cost card, and I also think this card will not see any play. Next up we have Iago, Evasive and Vanish, and only characters with Evasive can challenge this character, and when opponent chooses this character for an action, banish them. I think this card is not that bad, but it really depends on how good the Vanish thing is, because Vanish is like really easy to remove, especially if you have like every second deck has like a lot of songs that can choose. Just for example, you can just play I Am Still Here, give him resist 2, and he will be removed from the field. So I don't think this card is at the moment that good, so I'll put it in here. Then we have the Jafar, and during an opponent's turn, whenever one of your illusion characters is banished, you may return that card to your hand. I think the Vanish archetype is not that good, and I don't think that you will play a lot around of it, so I don't think this Jafar will be played a lot. But the thing is, it's a Jafar and you can like play Shift, and it also has the right colors for it, so you can play it maybe in those Jafar wheel decks. And I personally still think that this card is not good enough to be included, so I will definitely put it in not be played. Just don't know where I added this in. But it's not that. Here is. Will not see play. Next up we have Hades, 6 cost, uninkable, 4/6, and when you play this character you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to banish chosen character with cost 3 or less. The thing is, we have like a way better card for this, and it's Medusa, and I think Medusa is just like way better than him, so just put him in, will not see any play. Next up we have Madame Medusa. Whenever this character quests, you may deal 2 damage to another chosen character of yours to put the top 3 cards of chosen player's deck into their discard. I think it's a Ruby Amethyst card, and I don't think Ruby Amethyst will be playing around wheeling your opponent. It's not good at the moment, but maybe later on it will be a really good card. Next up we have Tekka, Shift 7, 12/12, 10 inkable, quest for free, and during your turn, whenever opposing character is exerted, banish them. I think this card is like really good, but being Shift 7 and being like 10 cost characters is like really hard, and I don't think this card will see any play because it's like way too expensive. And the only way you could play it is like to cheat it out, but at the moment you need to rely a lot on your opponent to cheat this card out, and it has like a lot of counters, because if this card gets any play, you still have the you have like characters that like remove Tekka, so you can just remove this card for free with some of low cost characters, which is like really bad for this card. Next up we have Elsa, 2 cost, 2 free, and whenever this character quests, if you have a character named Anna in play, gain 1 lore. Personally, I don't think this card will also see a lot of play. I think Amethyst, Ruby Amethyst, just waiting for a good 2-cost character at this time, just to have like a better options for like the 2 costs of Ruby Amethyst are like not that good at the moment. You have like the Flint Rider, you have Mother Medusa Snake, which is not really a 2-cost character you want to play out on turn 2. So you just waiting for those turn 2 cards. And yeah, I don't know if they will be here in this set, but maybe next one. Next up, we have Giant Cobra Amethyst Steel card, 3-cost, inkable 4/4, has Vanish, which is not that good, but now comes the thing. When you play this character, you may choose and discard a card to gain 2 lore. And basically, that's a GOAT. This card is a GOAT. Just a bit better. And I know discarding a card hurts sometimes, but being in like Amethyst Steel, where you get like a lot of cards in your hand, especially with rabbits, genies, friends on the other side, and so on. You have the libraries, you can put him into the library, and if he gets removed, you already draw a new card. So I think this card will like be really, really interesting, and I think this will be the first auto include in our list. Next up, we have Bucky. When this character is banished in a challenge, you may draw a card. Not that good. Not the Bucky we waited for. I think I waited for another discard Bucky, but this one is not it, and it will not be included in any of those decks in the future. Next up, you have Raja, Ghostly Tiger, and 2-cost 3/3, and he has Vanish. Really hard to tell, but I don't think this card will see any play. Those Vanish characters are just like really easy to remove at the moment. And yeah. Next up, we have Mother Gothel, 1/4, and whenever one of your characters challenge, you may move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. I think those moving damage counters archetype is like really, really good, and I can potentially see that this archetype will like grow in strength in the next future sets, but at the moment I don't see that this card will see any play. Next up, we have Swen. For the Blurple decks, 2/6 has Rush, and when you play this character, chosen character gets -3 this turn. This is really interesting, and I personally don't think this card will see a lot of play in those decks because it's just not that good enough to be played. Next up, we have Amethyst, Emerald, Diablos, Spitful Raven. 1/2, costs 2 is inkable, has evasive, and gets plus Challenger 2. And I think this card is just not good enough to be played. If it be like 2/2 and it gets Challenger 2, it will be really good to remove the genies. But for this, it's like not that really great. Next up, we have Merlin, Clever, Clairvoyant, 0/1, and whenever this character quests, name a card, then reveal the top card of your deck. If it is the named card, put it in your inkwell face down and exert it, otherwise put it on top of your deck. I think this card is really funny, but I don't think it will see any play in the future. Next up, we have Elsa, Amethyst, Sapphire Cardigan, Shift 4, which is really good, and whenever this character quests, you may exert chosen character. If you do and you have a character named Anna in play, the chosen character can't ready at the start of the next turn. Really interesting, really strong. If you combine it, like the problem with Amethyst Sapphire is that you don't really have a lot of removal options, so this card comes very handy for it, and I think this card could see like a potential play maybe once or twice, maybe even it could like be played instead of the 8-cost Elsa. But me personally, I think the 8-cost Elsa is just way better, so I will put it in will see play, but I don't think it's an auto include this way. Next up, we have a Kenai Magical Bee, 3-cost inkable, 1/4, Challenger 2, and during your turn, when this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand and gain 1 lore. It's a bit too slow, but I like the effect, and I personally don't think it will see a lot of play. But it's not a bad card at all. So most of those cards that will not see play are not bad cards, but that they are just like way better options at the moment. And they will maybe see play later on in the game when there's like a new meta shifting, so you will like always look at those cards first. And especially on those ones, maybe they will have a great combo in the future. And yeah, next up we have Cusco, Amethyst, Emerald, Evasive, and at the start of your turn, choose one. Each player draws a card. Each player chooses and discards a card. Sadly it's a forecast unning, so I don't think it will see a lot of play. Has a cool effect, but being a 2/2 cost character is like really hard. Next up we have Anna, 4 cost, and when you play this character, chosen opposing character can't ready the start of your next turn. And whenever you can like give support with her, which is also really interesting, but it's like a 2/3 and it's like 4 cost thinkable, really expensive. If you play it, you will probably play with the Elsa, but all in all, I don't think it's a good card, and I think this card will not see any play. Just looking up where she is. Here we go. And yeah. Next time we have a really interesting card. Donald Duck, 5/6, 7 cost unink. Opponent needs 25 lore to win the game. Really interesting card. I have no idea if this card is good or bad, to be honest. For me personally, I don't think this card will see a lot of play. But I don't know, man. This card could be really good, and I just don't know it at the moment. We will see, but this card has like a lot of potential, especially if you can like protective ward or something like this. And yeah. Next we have Panic. When you play this character, you move up to 2 damage counters from chosen character to chosen opposing character. 4 cost, 2/3, quest for 2 is not that bad. And I just think the card is not bad, but I think just the bell is way better to play here if you're going for those effects. Next up we have Archimedes, 2/2. Whenever an opponent chooses this card for an action ability, you may draw a card. So really interesting, but I don't think it will see a lot of play. Next up we have a vanilla card, 4/3 for free. Also not a really good card, we just put it in here. Next up we have Mufasa, Among the Stars, Amethyst Steel, dual color, shift 5, evasive, and resist 1. Really strong card. And I think you don't have like really cool options for the shift option here, so it's like really hard. I will put it in here because I don't really know if there is something to come here. Probably there will be something, and it will be like if you can play it on turn 5, this little card is like really strong and removes every Elsa, every genie on the spot. Next up we have Magical Maneuvers. Return chosen character of yours to your hand and exert chosen character. Really interesting. And I think I would put this card in here because it will see play. Maybe like 1 or 2 times. You can add 1 twice in this deck, but yeah. I don't think it will see a lot of play, but like maybe it will be played. I don't really know, but I will put it in. Will see play. It will definitely see play. Next up we have This Is My Family, 2 cost unink, gain 1 lore, draw a card. Really strong, really not that bad, especially for those Madrigal decks and especially for those Amethyst Steel decks. It's also way better than the Gather Your Knowledge where you gain 2 lore because you can sing it and you draw a card again. So this is really strong. Next up we have Amethyst Coil. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may move 1 damage counter from chosen character to chosen opposing character. Sadly, it's like a 3 cost unink, so I don't think it will see any play here. Next up we have a 4/4 Drizella. I think it's not that bad to have like 4 cost 4/4, but you have like there's no space for those cards, for those vanilla cards in Emerald at the moment. So I'll put it in, will not see any play. Next up with Grunge. Whenever this character quests, you pay 1 less for the next action you play this turn. It's a 2/2/2. The thing is like really easy to remove, but it's a pirate, and I don't know. I don't personally think it will see a lot of play, but it's not a bad card, and I think in those pirate decks in the future, this card will be not that bad. Next, we have Baymax Low Battery. This character enters the play exerted. It's like a Banzai, but just like being exerted. And the thing is that it's being exerted is like really, really harsh. If it wouldn't be like that way, it would be a way better card. But yeah, all in all, not that bad, but I don't think it will see any play. Next, we have Thomas O'Malley. 4/2 has Ward. And you have something similar at the moment with the Prince. So it could definitely see play. But yeah, it has no shift option, so I don't think it's like way better than the Prince. It's more like 4/2 is like still really good. He's like 1 strength more, so it's not that bad. But he just quests for 1, that's the thing here. So I don't know, maybe I will put it in here because there is just a way better option for this at the moment. Next we have Pete. And whenever you play an action that isn't a song, you may banish chosen item. I think this card will definitely see play, especially if you see those shift options you have in Emerald Steel at the moment. So really cool. Next, when Hiro Hamada, when you play a flat-born character on this card, draw a card. Really interesting because we have a really strong Sapphire Emerald Sapphire dual color card, which is really strong, but I don't think it's like worth to put him in here, because if you play this deck you can also play Morph and like just shift him on him. So yeah, I will definitely, personally I think I will put it in here because you don't really know where this is going at the moment. You can see the shift option. I will put it in here later, but I will put it in here. We will see how strong this card will be in the future, but me personally, for me it's like still here, will not see any play. Next up we have the Cheshire Cat. When you play this character you may deal 2 damage to chosen damaged character. If it would be like to chosen character it will be way stronger, but so I will just put it in, will not see any play. Next up we have Basil. Whenever this character quests, opposing damaged character gains Reckless. Again, it would be a really cool effect if it wouldn't be like damaged character, so put it in, will not see play. Next we have Emerald Ruby deck cards, dual color cards, 6 cost Inkable Mad Hatter, 3/5. Whenever a damaged character challenges another character, you may draw a card. Interesting. But I don't think it will see a lot of play in those decks because there are other options you can go for, and I think Emerald's Ruby will have like way other sides to like deal with card draw. Next up we have Queen of Hearts, shift 3. Whenever another character is played, put the damage counter on them. This is good, really good when you combine them. But especially those two, I think if you play them together, I think you can like will see play in those decks. I think this makes sense, yeah. I think if you put those two together, they will definitely see play together. Next up we have like a really strong shift, Hiro Hamada. That's why I don't know where I put this 3 cost 3/3. Normally would play it in not to be played, but with this card it's like really strong. Your flat-bone characters that have a card under them gain evasive and ward, and this is really strong. So the only way you're removing these cards is with attacking them or with be prepared. There's no other way. Mass removal is the option here. You don't have any other option. So if you put this guy out, you have like an auto win, especially in Emerald Sapphire. Your easiest matchup is definitely that Ruby decks. Ruby decks are like really easy to deal with this deck. Next up we have Yokai. You pay 1 less to play characters using their shift ability. 1, 2, really interesting. I will put this yeah, I will put this definitely in We'll See play. I think there's a really interesting card that isn't in here. This is the Baymax card. I think we'll see that later, or I will include it on screen later on. So let's go with the next one. We have Berlioz 2/5. I just don't think this card will be played. Lady, while you have a character named Tramp in play, this character gets +1 lore. Just not doing enough here for me personally. The Yzma, when you play this character, you may draw a card, choose and discard a card. Also not that quite well. Gizmo Duck Resist 1. This character can challenge ready damaged characters. Really interesting. I don't know where to put this one in at the moment, but really interesting card. I think personally I don't think it will see a lot of play, but it's not a bad card. Next up we have Mr. Smee. When you play an action that isn't a song, your ready chosen pirate character. I think this card will see play in those Emerald Steel pirate decks, because what I see is Emerald Steel. This card is like slowly disappearing, sadly, because they're just adding like captains into Emerald Steel. So yeah, really hard to deal with that. And yeah, next one we have Tramp. If you have a character named Lady in play, you pay 1 less to play this character, and when you play this character, a chosen character of yours gets +1 strength this turn for each other character you have in play. Personally, I don't see a lot of play in this. Next one, King of Fires. That's a really good card. Damaged characters can challenge your characters. If you combine this with other cards, for example with Tinkerbell and so on, this card is like really strong and like really hard to remove. So I think this card would definitely see play, but not be an auto include. Next up, 2/3/2 Duchess vanilla card. Not really that interesting. We'll put it in here. And we have Anastasia 3/1. Whenever this character is challenged, the challenging player chose and discards a card. Sadly, the stats are not that good and will be easily removed here. So yeah. Next up, one of my favorite cards in this set, the Pete Space Pirate Shift 4. While this character is exerted, opposing character can't exert to sing songs and your pirate character gains resist 1. So he gets resist 1, is 5/5. You can play it on the 3-cost Pete, so there is no way they can remove that 3-cost Pete. They're not allowed to sing any songs on this turn or play any actions. And after it, you shift him and your like Still Song is having like a big problem for him. So I will play this to the first auto include card. Next up we have Wake Up Alice. Return chosen damaged character to the player's hand. Personally put it just in here. And then we have He's a Tramp. A character with 1 cost or more can sing. Chosen character gets +1 this turn for each character you have in play. It's really interesting because it's like a 1-cost song, and I think I will put it in here because it had like a lot of potential, but I don't think it will see a lot of play in those decks. Next up, the Return of Hercules. Each player may reveal a character from their hand and play it for free. This card is so strong, and I think it will see a lot of play, especially in those Emerald Ruby decks with Robin Hood and so on, because you can just play it for free with Robin Hood. That's really strong, especially if you have discarded your opponent's hand, then play this out. You play character out for free. Amazing. Next up, one of the most discussed cards. Each player exerts all the cards in their inkwell, then each player more than 3 cards in their inkwell returns cards at random from the inkwell to their hand until they have 3 cards in their inkwell. For me, this card is broken. Why is this card broken? You're resetting your opponent. If you play it in green Sapphire, your opponent has no chance to come back to this game. The thing is, this card is just really strong, especially if you combine it with Prince John's Mirror. This card can be broken. And I think this card will be broken if you play those colors. If those colors have like a lot of support already, so I can see this have like a lot of potential. But personally, I can't put it into broken, but I can put it in here. And I also think I will put this one in here because I think the speed is just way too strong. And yeah. Next up we have Emerald Coil. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, chosen character gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Not that bad, but I don't think it will see any play here. And then we have the Queen of Hearts. While this character has damage, she gets +3 attack. Really strong. And with those shift options we already have here, I can see that this card will be played in those decks. Next up, the Matchmaker Unforgiving Expert. Whenever this character challenges another character, each opponent loses 1 lore. Not good enough, to be honest. And then we have Reckless. This character can quest and must challenge this turn if able and resist 2. Really strong for a 3-cost character, and I think this card will see play, especially if you see the next Ruby Steel decks cards, I mean. Next up we have Bell. Shift 7. For each item card in your discard, you pay 1 ink less to play this character using their shift ability. And whenever this card quests, you may put up to 3 item cards from your discard on the bottom of your deck to gain 1 land for each item card moved this way. Really interesting, and I can see that it will be played in those Ruby Sapphire item decks, but not like an auto include or something like that. Next up we have Cyborg. This character gets +1 attack for each other character you have in play. Really not that bad of a card. I can see that this card has like a lot of potential. And yeah, why not? I mean, I think it will see play. This card is not bad at all. Then we have a 1-cost character, 1/2. While a damaged character is in play, this character gets +2 again. I think this card will be played in those Ruby Steel decks, which will come soon. And we have like a 3/1, really interesting. I don't think it will see a lot of play. We have the Beagle Boys. Whenever this character quests, chosen character of yours gains Rush and Resist 1. Not that bad, and you can combine it with Maui Shark, for example, which is like really strong. So I think this card will see a bit of play. Next up we have the Beast. You can tap it and pay 2 to banish 2 of your items to deal 5 damage to chosen character. I think it's not that bad, but I don't think it will see a lot of play here. Next up we have like a really strong card. We have Mushu, the Majestic Dragon. Whenever one of your characters challenges, they gain resist 2. That's really strong. But then, during your turn, whenever one of your characters banish another chosen character, gain 2 lore. This is amazing. This will be an auto include, maybe even broken. If you play Ruby Steel and you attack with a Calhoun, destroy a card with Calhoun, you gain 4 lore in 1 turn with 1 attack. If you combine it with Robin Hood, you gain 8 lore. This is amazing. Your opponent is not allowed to exert their characters. If your opponent exerts your characters, he loses the game. Only way to fix this is to remove that Mushu Dragon. But the thing is, if you have like a white board and you play him out, it's over. You have always to be careful for turn 5, which is really, really interesting. I think this will be like more of an auto include, but not broken. When you play this character, you may banish chosen item of yours to draw a card. If the banished item is a named Maurice machine, you may also banish chosen character with 2 or less. Really interesting card. it's like really hard to tell because there are like a lot of Maurice. There are many Maurice machines, so I don't know. You could probably try it in like a fun deck, but I don't. I think it will see play in some fun decks, but not really in the like in any meta format. So I will put it in here. Next up, we have Lyle Tiber's Rogue. 8 cost Inkable 6/4. Once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your Inkable, deal 2 damage to each character in play. This is more like a steel card, I would say. I don't think this card is that good in red blue. I don't also think it's good in like Ruby Amethyst. I don't think this card will see a lot of play. But yeah, it's not that bad. Like maybe in the future you can see it like in any other decks, but not for now, I think. Next up we have Mulan. You have a shift 5, she has evasive, and whenever this character challenges another character, your other characters gains this turn. Characters can challenge ready characters this turn. I think this card is really good, especially because you have like a lot of shift options for this Mulan. I definitely will see in play, especially with that Mushu. I don't think it's like an auto include, but it's definitely a card you will see in play in those decks, especially in the first few weeks when everyone wants to try the Ruby Steel deck. But yeah, really good card. And let's go to the next one. Next one, here, Baloo. 5/4, 6 cost Unink. Your characters with 7 strength or more can't be dealt damage. To be honest, I don't think this card is good. I mean, it's really not that bad if you have like playing against Steel Song, but Steel Song can just remove this card and then remove the other card, so I don't think I see like a lot of use in this card. So yeah, let's see. Next one is Sir Kai, 2/2, quests for 2. I don't think this is a card you want to play. And we have like again a vanilla Edgar Balzahar, 6/5, quests for 1. Bit ordinary, just basic. I don't think this card will be played a lot. Then we got a really interesting card. We got Company. Ready all your characters, they gain Reckless. I think this card will see play. It's not bad. Especially again in those Ruby Steel decks, it got like a lot of support, and this is one of those cards that will boost this deck. And yeah, really good card. Then we have Out of Aura, Banish Chosen Character. I don't think this card will be played. Then we have Unconventional Tool. When this item is banished, you pay 2 less for the next item you play this turn. I think this card will be played, especially if you combine it with Hiram. So yeah, really good card. Then we have the first dual color item, Maurice Machine. When this item is banished, you may return an item card with cost 2 or less from your discard to your hand. Not that bad. And I think Maurice and this card combined is like both will see play here. So I think I will put it both in will see play. Next up we have Devil's Eye Diamond. You can tap it, and if one of your characters was damaged this turn, gain 1 lore. I mean, it's alright, but I don't think it has a lot of potential. Like right now, really hard. Next up, Clarabelle, support character 3/3, and your other characters with support get +1 attack. I don't think this card will be played a lot. Then we have Scrooge McDuck. You may exert 4 items of yours to play this character for free. When you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal an item card, put it in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Could see play. Will probably see play. Next up we have the Moana, the promo for the cinema movie. I think this card will not be played. Then we have Gate Molia, also a card that is not gonna be played. Then we have Lucky, again a puppy. Whenever this character quests, look at the top 2 cards of your deck. You may reveal any number of puppy character cards and put them into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Again, those puppies are like doing a really good job in syncing each other, synergizing really good. So I will think this card will see a bit play in those decks. Next with Dawson, once during your turn, whenever a card is put into your ink, will look at the top card of your deck. You may put it in either top or the bottom of your deck. I don't know. I don't think this card will see any play. You have so many better cards. You have Developing Brain. You got like Visions of the Future. You don't need this card. Next, a really strong card, Tamatoa. When you play this character, return up to 2 item cards from your discard to your hand. And whenever this character quests, you may play an item for free. This card is busted, and I think this card is also really broken. It will be played a lot. Next up, Hey A, really interesting. Shift 3, resist 1, and when you play this character, put all cards from your hand into your inkwell, face down and exerted. Really interesting. We have a lot of Hey lovers in here. I think this card could potentially see play. But to be honest, I will put it in here because I have no idea how busted this can be. You could like ink your whole hand, and next turn you can like play Mufasa or something out if you top deck it. It's insane. It's really insane. I see like a lot of good ideas with this one. You can just like play a lot of high cost characters and win the game with it. Next up, 1-3. Will not see any play. Again, whenever this character quests, you may give a chosen character -2 this turn. Also not a really good card. Then we have a lot of puppies again. Whenever one of your puppy characters is banished, you may put that card into your inkwell face down and exert it. Could see play, not that bad. You can just put it in your inkwell. So I think himself too. But yeah, whenever one of your puppy characters is a puppy, so if it gets removed, you just get like an ink for free, which is really good. You get, I think the deck idea will be to get a lot of board presence, and if it gets removed, you will either get it back from your grave to your hand, or you get it from, you will put it in your inkwell. So really good, and glad to see this. Next up, Honey Lemon. Whenever you play a flatbound character, if you use shift to play them, you remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. Even if you play a lot of shift characters, I don't think this card will be that good. Again, Robin Hood, free support. I don't think this will see any play. Then you have the Lady Cluck, Bodyguard and Ward. 5 cost, not that bad. Could potentially see play in all those blue steel decks. Really strong, not that bad. And then we have Jasmine, 5 cost, unink, 3/5. Whenever this character quests, if you have no cards in your hand, you draw a card for each ally character you have in play. Not bad. I'll put this in here because I think this card has a lot of potential. Then we have Baymax, 3/5 support, and when you play this character, look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a flatbound character card and put it in your hand. Put the rest bottom on your deck. I don't think this card is pretty well because you want to shift really early, and having like a shift character after turn 5 is like pretty useless. So I don't think this card will be played a lot. Next up, Maid Marianne. During an opponent's turn, whenever one of your ally characters is damaged, deal 1 damage to chosen opposing character. Your characters named Lady Cluck again resist 1. Pretty strong, really good synergy with this one. But yeah, I think this could see a lot of play, like especially if you play against Steel Song. Yeah, not that bad. Not that bad at all. Then you have a 1 cost unink, Water Has Memory. Look at the top 4 cards of chosen player's deck, put one on the top of their deck and the rest on the bottom of their deck in any order. Really interesting card, but I don't think it will see any play. Now we have a really busted card. During your turn, whenever a card is put into your inkwell, you may give chosen character -2 attack. I think Caesar on Ice will love this card. Sapphire Call, 2 cost, inkable, and I think, to be honest, this card is broken. Will be played a lot. Really strong. 2 cost. You have like a lot of great 2 cost things in this deck right now. Baymax Charging Station. Whenever you play a flatbound character, if you use shift to play them, you may draw a card. Don't think that's really good. Next up, we have Dr. Calcio. While this character has no damage, he gains resist 2. I think this card is really strong and it has like, we'll see a lot of play. Like it's a really good upgrade. Quest for 1, really good. You can't do nothing wrong with him. Then you have a 2-cost 3/2. I don't think this will see any play. We have the Bolt. Whenever this character quests, if he has no damage, you may draw a card, then choose and discard a card. I will put it in will see play not because of the effect, but more because you have like a shift option for the Bolt here. So not that bad. Then you have a Raya. During your turn, whenever a character is put into your inkwell, this character gains resist 1 until the start of the next turn. Personally think this card is not that good. I will put it in here. And then we have the TikTok. During your turn, this character gains a whale save while a character is in play. If he would get like evasive all the time, if you have a character in play, this would be amazing. But as this, it's not that good. Then we have a 1-cost Mulan 2/1. When you play this character, you may draw a card, choose and discard a card, similar to the Simba one. I think you have like, for Steel, you have like the better Mulan option where she has like 1 cost and gives herself 2 damage and is like a 2/3 character, so I think the card is way better than this one. Next up, Orwell. During your turn, while you have a character named Miss Bianca or Burnett in play, this character gains evasive. I think it's not that good. Then you have Mufasa 4/4/4, also not that good. Vanilla. You have Gun 2, Experience Enforcer 2/4. When you play this character, characters can't exert to sing songs until the start of your next turn. Each player pays 2 ink more to play action or items. This is not applied to singing songs. This is a really good card, and I think this will be not an auto include, but definitely here big in the will see play. Next up, we have Mickey Mouse Legendary 1/1. During your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may play a character for free. Hard to tell. Me personally, I would put it in here because it's like really hard to get this through, because you have to play like Amethyst Steel and you have to like give him Rush and then maybe remove something. Really hard. I don't know. I don't think this card will see any play. Then we have Restoring Atlantis. Your characters can't be challenged until the start of your next turn. This will be in play 100%. It will maybe even be an auto include, but the thing is, it's a 5-cost unning. It's like really hard to tell right now, but I can see this like be here or even here. Really good card. Then we have Training Staff. Tap and pay 1 ink to chosen character gains challenger +2 this turn. I think this card is alright, but nothing special. Then there was like an Aladdin, which like, if he quests, you're allowed to play a character for free. Character that costs 3 for free, which is pretty strong. I think this would be like an auto include in some of the decks. And there is like a Baymax, which you can shift on everything. That's it for this video. Thank you for joining in. Like, it's a very long video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think I made some really cool predictions here. I think, me personally, I will be hyped about that Pete, because that shift Pete is like insane. You can't even stop him, because on turn 3 the normal Pete is being played, and then you just shift on him and then he has like 5/5 and resist 1. And this is really strong, and I think this will see a lot of play and will be like an auto include in all those Emerald Steels decks. So yeah guys, feel free to leave a like, drop your comments on your favorite card, and see you guys soon. Bye.